Repaying debt is the #1 goal for Canadians financially next year. According to a new CIBC poll, other top priorities include keeping up with bills and growing investments, increasing savings, and avoiding debt, and also saving for a vacation. The poll also finds that Canadians have concerns about inflation, rising interest rates, and general recessionary fears. Well, Jamie Gollenbeck is a Managing Director of Tax and Estate Planning with CIBC, joining us in studio now to talk more about this. Jamie, great to meet you. Thanks for being here this morning.
My pleasure.
So this poll is really interesting about the recessionary fears of Canadians, and that, of course, that's going to impact your investments and your tax planning indeed. What does the poll find about how concerned Canadians are for the coming financial year?
I think Canadians are concerned. They're concerned about, obviously, their personal debt levels. They're concerned about rising interest rates, but most importantly, of course, inflation. The cost of things are getting more expensive, and Canadians are having to struggle to try to make those ends meet every single month. So they are worried about that, and of course, looming in the background is the fear of a recession in 2023 as well.
So that psychology of fear, we don't know for sure yet that Canada necessarily will be in a recession next year, but there is that fear. Does that sometimes make it real, that in terms of when people are so afraid of a recession that they stop spending, that can actually trigger more of it, or there's greater factors involved?
Yeah, I think there's greater economic factors. If it's really the strength of the economy, and we'll have to see how that develops in 2023. Obviously, interest rates, will they go up a little bit further? We're not really sure. All that really plays into sort of an economic situation for 2023.
So, Jamie, when it comes to people sort of, maybe they're sitting down, putting pen to paper, taking a look at their investment statements, their, bank statements, et cetera, and they're kind of trying to come up with a plan. And we sort of hear that time and time again. It's, well, make a financial plan. It sounds good on paper. But what are some of the best tips that you can give people to sort of try to set themselves up for a bit of better financial success next year?
Yeah, I think now is the best time of all, especially if you're off on vacation or things are a bit slow the next week or so, is put together a budget. I think a cash flow budget for 2023, looking at it on a month-by-month basis or maybe a quarterly basis. Try to look at all your expenses this past year. You can go on to online banking. You can download all your transactions, either your checking account, your Visa, your MasterCard. See where you spent the money, and see, are there ways to sort of tighten things up if necessary in 2023? Look at sources of income that are coming in, look at your job security, but put together a plan, not just about the investing side, but more importantly about the spending side. Are there things that we can do proactively going into 2023 to preserve that cash flow?
Do you find when you're working with your clients that they're a bit surprised sometimes when they sort of sit down and sort of figure out a budget, perhaps how much they've spent on items that they really, maybe even just like your morning cup of coffee?
Yeah, well, I mean, the coffee, we've been talking about that for a decade now, but I think the focus now is on all those streaming apps.
Yes.
People, certainly during the pandemic, have accumulated multiple subscriptions that they forget they have. And that's an easy thing to fix. You just go online and take a look at a monthly statement, whether it's your automatic debits from your checking account or maybe it's from your credit card, and you can easily tally up. And, if you're still using those streaming, great. Very inexpensive form of entertainment. Yeah. But if it's something you haven't used in months, there's an easy way to slash a few $100s a year potentially from your family budget.
That's so true, because you're right. I mean, they kind of, especially during the pandemic, right? The streaming services effectively crept up on you because you felt like you were indoors and all you could do was kind of watch what was going on the screen. Right. So, I mean, I know my family, we loaded up on a few of those, and you're right, you got to sort of check those things out. But beyond, streaming necessarily, what are, like, when it comes to like planning for next year beyond a budget, what other things would you tell people to sort of say, hey, this is how you can sort of like sharpen your financial focus in a way?
Yeah, well, I think, it comes back to the poll and the results on debt and debt repayment. And I believe that certainly if you've got credit card debt, that should be your #1 focus for 2023. I wouldn't even save for retirement if you have a credit card debt. Credit card debt, the interest rate's running around 20%. Where can you get a guaranteed rate of return of 20% annually after tax, other than paying down debt? So I think anyone who has credit card debt, and that was a concern of many of the people in our survey, should focus on that. And that should be part of that monthly budget. Set aside a bit of money every month to pay down that debt, try to get it all paid off in 2023, and then focus on other longer-term goals like saving for retirement.
Jamie, I've never heard anybody say that, but that really does make a whole lot of sense as we sort of look towards the new year. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Do appreciate these and these tips too.
My pleasure.
All right, take care.